Fire Emblem Engage 2000 Hour Breakdown and Review. I have been streaming this game and playing this game for over a year now, and I still enjoy it, and it's still a pretty fun game. So in this video, we're gonna kind of run through some of the pincer attacks, if you will, of the game and go into the features of the game. So let's dive right into it. Part 1. Initial Impressions.
Wow!
Before launch, I saw CHOOPS post that the game was too easy. He had mysteriously acquired the game a few days early, likely due to receiving a review copy. My expectations, when engaging for the first time, were that the game was going to be super easy.
Actually, Iced Coffee Gaming, Engage is easy. It's practically a baby game, especially compared to Bearwick Saga. Also, Vander is better than Anna, objectively. Oh my.
After the first few chapters, it became clear to me that Engage actually cares about its mechanics and difficulty. And before the well, and without DLC, the base game was actually challenging. But it wasn't just challenging, it was good. Movement was limited. Position was a hugely important thing. Gone were the 8-move flying Kanto units, spamming curve shots and 3 houses. We have entered a new era of emblems, anime, and waifuism. A land where Etier Abenjoyers blatantly lie about her performance because that dopamine hit of seeing a low durability unit one-shot a flyer on Silverbow with poor hit rates trumps the observable stat differences between her and better units.
Excuse me, did you just say that Etier is bad? I'll have you know that I gave mine every single stat booster in the game, and she was easily performing as well as a base Marin. Etier is my waifu for laifu, so I'm gonna have to kill.
Out of the other FE games I've played, Engage rewarded mastering the mechanics the most, and even has some cool unique things like halberdiers, pincer attack, chain attacks, chain guard, no Kanto on every mounted unit, and a lot of cool positional effects that actually reward you for leveraging them in a meaningful way. Engage is designed in a simple way for challenge runs, where you can simply ban big mechanics to drastically increase the difficulty of the game. One of the most notable challenge runs is Ringless, where you forego the rings entirely. And of course, my favorite, Ringless No Somniel. Ringless No Somniel is one of the hardest, most enjoyable challenge runs in FE I have done. It actually pushed my game knowledge to the limit, as well as forced me to calculate good moves every turn instead of just relying on broken builds or mechanics to make progress. Part 2. Story doesn't matter at all!
Let the lesson begin!
The biggest criticism of Engage that I've come across is that the story is bad. I'm here to tell you that most video games have bad stories, especially compared to movies, TV shows, and books, which typically build the characters in an interesting and unique way and actually have good plots. I haven't come across a game that comes close to good shows or books, so to me story is not as big of a deal in video games. I regularly tell people I play chess for the plot because to me plot does not matter at all in games. As a true gamer, I religiously skip cutscenes. I can't let my gameplay get bogged down with character development and plot progression. The only development I need to see is that people finally acknowledge that Tamara is objectively stronger than Goldmary, who is a bad. The only development I need to see is that my team is stomping enemies, and that the maps provide a unique scenario that isn't the same situation repeated with no interesting mechanics on those maps or interesting puzzles to solve. I get it. You enjoy the story in games. I used to as well, but this thing happened to me called not having enough time to watch cutscenes. And since then, I never watched another one again. Unless forced to do so thanks to the generous super chatters of my stream, who through no ill will, always have my back. Part 3. The Fundamental Mechanics. Engage really shines when it leans into its new mechanics. Chain guard, chain assist, positional buffs by standing next to things, low movement, limited passive slots, SP management, and of course, dogs. Chain Guard is one of the more interesting mechanics in FE Engage. It allows you to nullify a single hit of damage, in most cases enabling a squishy unit to tank a lethal blow, then counterattack. When used remotely optimally, this allows you to aggressively position frail one-rounding units to enemy phase and survive. Chain Guard requires a bit of planning, but once you get used to it, it becomes second nature. Chain Assist is another mechanic that really leverages positioning. You have an 80% chance to deal 10% of the target's max HP as damage per Chain Assist, allowing you to deal bonus damage to enemies. Chain Assist can kill on its own, even if the initial attack misses or does 0 damage. If you already have Chain Assists, you can completely kill enemies and bosses with Chain Assists alone, making it a very powerful player phase tool for fixing damage and cheesing bosses. Low movement and engage means that if you position poorly, you will suffer the pain of being bad at moving things on the map, and more than likely, your units will die. Dying is not a good thing in Fire Emblem, so the low movement and lack of Canto means that when you commit to a position, you better make sure you are safe. Other FE games have higher movement and Canto on mounted units, which allows you to play sloppier than normal, as if you have a built-in get-out-of-jail-free card. Limited passive slots also means builds need to be tight. Classes and abilities need to be considered when making builds. SP is not an infinite resource, and in a lot of cases can limit the amount of units you can dump SP books into. Leveraging the most out of the emblems, units, classes, and limited passive slots makes for more interesting builds, as meaningful limitations force creativity and problem solving, though realistically, most people will just run power and speed skills. It turns out SP management is kind of a thing. Before the Well, the only way you gained SP was a 1-to-1 XP to SP gained ratio when using an emblem ring, or a 2-to-1 XP to SP ratio when using a bond ring. SP gain used to be a hugely limiting factor when making builds before the Well was added to the game, allowing only 2,000 to 3,000 SP worth of passives total. Now that the Well is in the game, you can consistently run 4,000 to 7,000 SP builds, opening up a completely new metagame. The original design without the Well more or less prevented Maddening players from actually using most of the passives, but now that the Well has arrived, a lot of units can run different builds, and the metagame has changed forever. There are still some who forego the Well, casting it into the Shadow Realm, much like the players who cast their iron weapons into the Eternal Skillet in hopes of cooking up some SP books and early game warp staves. Yeah. Part 4. Skill Floor and Ceiling.
No, do not expect too much of me.
One of the things that no one likes to talk about in game reviews are actual game design mechanics, and things like the skill floor and skill ceiling. Often these fundamentals are overlooked for things like story, music, and art. A game lives and dies by its gameplay, and the gameplay in Engage is actually pretty good. Bad moves are generally heavily punished, while good moves are rewarded. There are broken builds and mechanics, as is the case with most SRPGs, but despite these things, the game still doesn't let you get away with too much, aside from avoid tanking, bonded shield, warp skipping, mitigation tanks that take minimal damage in one round at enemy phase, core and freeze, cheese, and of course, the dreaded 40 speed Chloe General. The skill floor of this game is much higher than other FE games, especially if you're using higher move Fire Emblems that have mounted units with Canto. Mounts have one more move than most other advanced units, and by making Canter a passive anyone can get instead of something only mounts can get, every unit can function in a similar way to a mini-mount. There are also other mechanics at play, like proper use of chain guards and chain assists that alone can carry a playthrough if leveraged properly. Knowing a unit's strengths and weaknesses is also hugely important. Some units are crit fishers and others are speedsters that want to crit fish a juicy fish for flame.
Do you know much about the ocean?
Engage has mechanics the player can master. Most of them are positional by nature. The better you are at positioning units to leverage these various effects, the better you will perform in battle. Games that allow you To have huge movement plus Kanto can still require good positioning or general positioning, but Engage forces you to commit and heavily nerfed movement options as well as limited warp/rescue uses per playthrough. The skill ceiling in Engage is mostly related to unit management, resource management, making strong moves, and positioning. The core game really shines when you ban all rings and the Somniel. At the center of Engage is a high-skill game that punishes bad play and rewards optimal moves. The game is possible to complete without rings and Somniel resources, but like with most games, these things are added to allow players to min-max units and create builds that are viable on the highest difficulty setting. Engage also offers different scenarios, so each map feels different from the last. Thank you for checking this out. This is a kind of departure from what I usually do, definitely more editing, stuff like that. This actually isn't even finished. I have 8 parts, so if this one does well, we'll do a part 2. If not, we'll just resume the regularly scheduled content. But thank you for checking this out. Definitely like and subscribe for more engagement. All right, peace.